All right. Hey, everybody, it's Coach T, and welcome back to another Investor's Edge Real Estate Power Talk. And boy, have I got a treat for you today. We are here with the man, the myth, the legend himself. Yes, Mr. Joe Fairless. And to give you a little background, my goodness, I've known this guy for a decade now. We met way back in 2012, 2013, when Joe had a man crush on Tony Robbins, and Joe was doing some great personal development work. And I was fortunate enough to become his coach and, mindset coach. And he's had lots of real estate coaches and mentors and trainers and all of that. But we really clicked and hit it off. And then, as we really will get into Joe's story here, we've had a phenomenal run for the past decade, and I've been able to watch Joe go from where he was back there to where he is today. So without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Joe Fairless from Ashcroft Capital. How are you, Joe?
Oh, I'm well. And a decade, I didn't put that together, but holy cow, a
Yeah.
decade, 10 years. And yeah, it's been incredible. You and I connected before I purchased an apartment community. And now my company I co-founded is at $2.5 billion worth of apartment communities. So grateful for our relationship and our friendship.
And as am I. And what a beautiful way to kick this off. So I'd love for you to start telling the listener, a little bit about where you're from and how you got into real estate, and maybe how you identified that single family might not be the right thing. And that's what pivoted you to doing some multifamily syndication. And I'll let you kick it off from there.
Yeah, well, I mean, where I'm from geographically, Texas. Although I was born in Michigan, Flint, Michigan, just visited my grandma who's 107, or her 107th birthday was this week. So
Oh,
just visited my grandmother. Yeah, 107.
amazing. Amazing.
Uh,
How's she doing? I got
um,
to ask. The
she
listeners want to
she's
know.
sharp as a tack mentally. Physically slowing down as you would expect, but sharp as a tack mentally, and still lives at our house. From Flint, Michigan. My family moved to Texas when I was 3, and I grew up in Texas. Then I went to Texas Tech, graduated, and went to New York City right out of college. I wanted to compete with the best of the best in advertising because that was my major. So I went to New York City, became a junior project manager, making $30,000 a year. Lived in East Flatbush, Brooklyn. It was a very dangerous area at the time. Statistically speaking, the busiest police precinct in all the 5 boroughs in New York City when I lived there.
Wow.
And the mailman wouldn't even deliver mail. There's a newspaper article where the mailman was hoarding the mail because he didn't want to go to different streets of his assigned route in East
Wow.
Flatbush. And I lived there for a year, and then I lived in East Village in Manhattan for 9 years. Had a roommate the whole time, and my friends made fun of me because I had a roommate, and they did not anymore. They outgrew that stage. They would get a studio apartment by themselves, and then they'd get a 1 bedroom, and then they might even get a 2 bedroom and have an office or something. And I kept a roommate, lived in a tiny little apartment with just 2 bedrooms. One of them didn't have windows, a hallway, a kitchen, and a bathroom, really no living room. And I did that because I was saving money and I was investing in real estate. And I saw an investment in the long term for, short term, being uncomfortable. And so I ended up buying my first house. I saved up money. It was a $76,000 home. I saved up about $20,000 all in to cover the down payment and closing costs. That was in 2009, October 2009. And then I bought another. So I ended up with 4 homes total. And then, as you mentioned, I realized that it's just the cash flow from the single family homes isn't what the spreadsheet makes it out to be. I would make $200 a month, which was great, but then someone would move out, and that'd be $5,000 to cover those to cover those costs. And so, there goes your money that was made throughout the year. And so I realized, hey, I got to scale. And yeah, I don't have the nest egg to buy large apartment communities on my own. So, I decided, okay, I need to learn how to raise money and also need to learn how to buy apartment buildings, oh, by the way. And so that's what I did. I started studying while I had my full-time job. I call it sampling life experiences while I had my full-time job. And I did different things. I taught a class on how to buy single family homes because people were interested in that. I did improv because I wanted to get better at public speaking. Then improv instructor said, well, if you want to get better at public speaking, do stand-up comedy because the audience has higher level of expectations for you. Because improv, they know if you're handed a broomstick, you're seeing the broomstick for the first time, so it's challenging. So they cut you some slack. But stand-up comedy, not so much, because you got to come in with a routine. And so I did stand-up comedy, performed at Gotham Comedy Club, I believe, and somewhere else that's now shut down. Gives you an idea of how good I was. and and then I ended up I wasn't doing it professionally at all. I was just trying to get better at public speaking. So I checked the box. I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And eventually I started studying multifamily and um, found my first apartment community in Cincinnati, Ohio. Uh, and that did not go well. And I'll pause right there and I'll be happy to talk about that. But I've been talking a lot, so I'll just pause there.
Well, thank you, Joey. First off, you're an awesome storyteller. I mean, right from your grandma turning as, 107, as old as she is, through your Texas journey to New York, being in the advertising business. I mean, obviously at that time, I know that you were looking to save money and you'd house hack and have these roommates and they'd go off and go a different path. And obviously looking back, I applaud you because that was a really wise move for you to save up that money, get into real estate, obviously realize single family wasn't get you to where you want to go. You do this deal in Cincinnati. But before we put a pin in that and move beyond that, were you into personal growth? Were you into books? Were you into not podcasts back then, but maybe some audios and CDs and Tony Robbins? How important was mindset for you going all the way back to your start in real estate?
Mindset was a focus once I decided I did not want to do my full-time job anymore. And I think it was because I knew that I needed to be more self-disciplined. There was no boss looking over my shoulder at my keyboard, my computer screen. That was me. And so I needed to make sure that I was disciplined enough to do things consistently and do the right things consistently. And how it started for me was YouTube and TED Talks.
Oh,
And I watched a lot of TED Talks, and then one of the TED Talks was by this guy named Tony Robbins, and I'd never heard of him, but I watched his TED Talk, and it really resonated with me. And I was reading books along the way. World's Greatest Salesman is one
yes.
of them that comes to mind, and I would there are certain laws in the World's Greatest Salesman. It's a very easy book to read and very straightforward. And I forget how many laws there are or what principles that the author calls them. But I would record those on my on my phone, and then I would play the recording of me saying the laws over and over on repeat when I would go run and up and down the East River in Manhattan. And so I would just wire my brain with these recordings of my voice repeating these laws. And I would do that for other books too and other takeaways. I would just record it and then I would put it on repeat and then I would go listen to that recording while on my run. And some days I would listen to Third Eye Blind or something else, but most of the time that's what I would do. And so that was helpful, reinforcing things that I was coming across on YouTube and then that I was reading.
I love that. And again, if I remember back to those days where we started working together, way back when you were also doing flashcards for real estate terminology, or you were doing
Yeah.
flashcards for something. What is it about repetition that, we talked about, or Tony ingrained in you, or you learned early on that repetition truly is the mother of skill? And now you've gone out there and not only, had a decade of Ashcroft and building this massive empire, but how important has that been? And do you still go back to some of the earlier trainings or some of the classics, Joe?
Yeah, good. I mean, good memory on the flashcards. I had that slipped my mind. Yeah, well, I would ride the subway and I would read these commercial real estate books, and I would just write down the terms that I was unfamiliar with. I write down the definition on the back,
Yeah.
and then I just look at the flashcards on the subway ride. I Side note, I also did that for 2 and 3 letter acceptable Scrabble words because I was interested in Scrabble too. So
Yes.
I knew all the Scrabble words, or a lot of them. But yeah, I would do it with commercial real estate terms. And yeah, with the repetition, I mean, it's what I realized is that the more that I immerse myself in it, the more I would talk about it, and the more it became a part of my life and who I was. And so that's been helpful. And yeah, to this day, I'll I won't I haven't done flashcards, but in a while. But what I'll do is after I read a book, then I'll while I'm reading it, I'm underlining certain things, certain takeaways, and then I will create a Word document afterward, and I'll just type in the findings or the lessons learned in that Word document and whatever the takeaways are from it. Like, for example, the latest book that has had a really big impact on my life is Die with Zero.
Yes.
And there's a couple very powerful concepts in that book. One of them being that yeah, we invest our money to make a return, but what about the investment of time and into memorable experiences? And what the author talks about are memory dividends. So the experiences that we take place, like I just went on an Alaskan cruise with my family, uh, we're still getting paid back, and we will for the rest of our lives from that experience in memory dividends, and how important that is for us to really focus on, because ultimately that's, at the end of the day, that's what we draw back. uh, that's some of the real benefits, or experiences in life that we have, is from the memories that we have with the ones we love.
I love that, Joe. This is exactly what this interview is about. It's really about, things like that that go not only into real estate, but really family, travel, abundance. It's available to everyone who's defiantly committed to it. And that's obviously what you've been. And I love the term memory dividends. I was watching you on another interview that you did talking about that book and bringing that term up, and just hearing it again really anchors it. So thank you for that. So, Joe, with all of that, let's go to that first apartment building in Cincinnati that maybe was a good experience until it wasn't. And we know what it is. And I watched you go through that, and I know the ups and downs. We don't need to get into every detail, but oftentimes as a high performance coach, I say we learn more by failing than we do by winning, or I don't even believe in failure. There's that great quote in this old book that you and I love so much called Think and Grow Rich, where Napoleon Hill says that there is no failure, there's only feedback. And as real estate investors and business people and entrepreneurs, we get a lot of feedback. Even as parents, we get a lot of feedback. And I've done the Alaskan cruise with Lisa and my kids as well. It's phenomenal. But let's go to Cincinnati and what happened. Give us the short version, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, short version is that I bought an apartment community with 12 investors, and I did not do the proper due diligence on the income and expenses for the property, and I did not raise enough money to cover what was needed to be done in order to turn the property around. I thought it was a turnkey property where we'd cash flow and pay for renovations out of the cash flow. Instead, it was a distressed property that needed a lot of money and a lot of attention. And so the net result was that it lost money, and I had 12 very challenging conversations with those investors. And I told each of them that I will pay them back plus 14% annualized profit, cash on cash return. So they net that out of my own pocket. Said, I don't know how long it's going to take, but that's what I'm committing to do. And I did. I paid them whatever I could each month. Sometimes it was $1,000 spread out among 12 people, and other times it was more than that. And I ended up paying them back. It took about, I think, a year and a half maybe or so. But it was at the end of the day, it was a loss for me of about $1.2 million. And I had never seen, over $200,000 in my bank account, my personal bank account, ever. And
Yep.
so I didn't have that to to distribute out, but that's what I was committed to do. And now fast forward, one of the investors has invested with us 20 plus times,
Wow.
and their character references for life for me. And people say, I'm glad you did that for them. It wasn't for them, it was for me. It was to be proud of who I am when I look at myself in the mirror and be able to sleep at night, and
Yep.
to, just be happy with myself.
That's beautiful. And it's a great story. And I've heard it a few times. And obviously we've been together. We've shared the stage together. We've been at conferences together, done podcasts together. And I'll never forget that if there's one thing that you are about, it's about integrity, right? And your middle name is integrity. And that's one thing I've always admired about you. So this was with yourself and 12 investors. At what point did you get up, dust yourself off, and maybe pivot to Texas and start buying property? And at what point did your business partner, Frank, come in?
Yeah, and so that's the key, identifying what is the root cause of why this just happened. And what I realized is that I'm good at some stuff and I'm not good at other stuff as it relates to this business. So I had to be aware of what my strengths were and what my weaknesses were. And I was really good. There are three components of the business: money, deals, execution, as the book, as my syndication book mentions. And the money, there it is. The money part I was good at. I was good at the conversations with investors. The finding deal part I was average at. The execution part, not so much. My background, as I mentioned, I was in advertising,
Right.
and I wasn't in commercial real estate. I wasn't in asset management. I wasn't in project management. I was in advertising, and so I did not have that experience that you need. And so Frank, my business partner, and I came together in 2015, and we bought our first property around August of 2015, and it was a property in Houston, Texas. And fast forward, I think 16 months, and we bought it for 14.1, and fast forward, I think 16 months, and it was worth $21.6 million.
Wow.
And so we did a cash out refinance, and things were wonderful. I was like, okay, so I knew it wasn't the business model. I knew it was the operator within the business model that was the problem.
Yep.
And I knew that, hey, the business model is solid, but I've got to optimize majorly how I was approaching the business model. And so instead of trying to do it all myself, I brought on a business partner, and we're off and running.
Off and running you went, and I'm so impressed. And again, that's a great story as well. And so as Frank was kind of more on the side of, doing what he does best, I believe you did what you did best, which is going out there and meeting people and raising capital. And it just so happened your coach, the guy that wears the blue shirt all the time, suggested you start a little podcast. And I'll take the listeners back to a time where this was Joe Fairless, before all the apartments, before the kick butt conferences he puts on every year, before, the books he's written. He wrote 2 books, and then he wrote this Gorilla, which is a book that sits on my desk 24/7, 365, because it is a Bible for anyone that wants to go out there and really do what Joe does. Joe, what was it like to have that opportunity to start a podcast way back in the day, and not just any podcast, but a daily podcast, the Best Real Estate Advice Ever show? What was that like early on, and how many crickets did you have until you started to get some uptick, brother?
Well, when you and I talked way back when, you suggested, hey, you asked me, have you ever heard of this Entrepreneur on Fire podcast? I was like, I haven't listened to any podcast, let alone this specific one. You said, go check it out. I listened to it. I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing a daily interview with an entrepreneur. And then you and I talked some more, and it made sense to do a podcast. And so I was like, okay, so I'm gonna do the podcast. I don't know how long, what the frequency will be. So I didn't start out daily. I just started out with the podcast, and I realized that after doing it for about a month and a half, sporadically, maybe once every 5 to 7 days or so. I didn't know what results it was generating because it wasn't generating results. So I didn't know what type of positive, if any, business benefits would come from it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make a commitment. It was around October of that year. I'm going to do a daily podcast for the rest of the year. And then I'm going to come up for air at the end of the year, and I'm going to see if it was a good use of my time. And so I got, money was incredibly tight. So what I did is I taught myself how to do every aspect of the podcast. And I taught myself Audacity. It's some software editing program.
I remember that one.
Yeah. And I was interviewing the guests. I was finding the guests. I was doing the show notes. I was posting it. I was sending the interview afterwards out to the guests so they would hopefully share. And so I realized one part of the podcast that was really challenging for me was the editing. I mean, it'd take me a long time to do the editing of the podcast. And so I found the partner who was going to be a sponsor. Or I found someone who would do an exchange with me. It was an editing company. And in exchange for them editing my daily show for the rest of the year, they would be my first sponsor. And they'd get their information on those early episodes. And I thought that was a great deal because there's no money out of pocket for me anymore. I was saving money. And it was also helping me get a track record with a sponsor so that I could then get paying sponsors at the end of the year. And that's exactly what happened. I got my first paying sponsor in January of that year. It was cozy.co, which might be a different website now. They've been bought out a couple of times. I think Lucas Hall was the founder or really high up with that company. And it was $2,000. I got a $2,000 check for sponsorship of that podcast. And that was amazing because that got me through next couple months worth of editing when I started paying for editing. And then the show started taking off from there. Once I started removing myself more and more out of the production of the show, and I was able to focus more on finding the right guests, doing more interviews, and then keeping it daily.
That's absolutely amazing. And so how many shows have you and your team now recorded, Joe? Roughly as of this recording, how many shows are we in?
Around 3,000.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that math the other day, and that's like almost 8 years. Yeah. It's been going almost 8 years.
That's incredible. Congratulations on that. And as a guest on your podcast multiple times, as a sponsor on your podcast multiple times, and anyone who's looking to really, get out there and find a really, hungry audience for real estate, I send you over to Joe and his team. It's been phenomenal. It's been a phenomenal run for you. That obviously, that with the books and that with the conferences. How much do you appreciate going to other people's conferences and, putting on your own, the best ever real estate conference every spring? And what's that like for you now to see guests upwards of, thousands of people coming to this thing that, was once a dream and now it's taken on a whole life of its own, and you're helping so many people, Joe, and I'm helping so many people because we've got a very similar tribe and vibe. What's it like for you to look back now in the last decade and just see the books, the podcasts, the conferences, going from Cincinnati and being upside down to, $2.5 billion in assets under management. And yes, transparent. I've invested with Ashcroft multiple times. What's it like for you to wrap your hands around that? What are you most grateful for?
I enjoy the one-on-one relationships the most. I am focused on scaling my team so that it's not about me. It's about them and elevating their profiles, because one challenge that I've come across when scaling the business is that when I was first doing the investor calls, they knew me because they knew of me from whatever podcast or event. And when it became too many investors for me to speak to, and I needed to continue to scale the business, I brought on team members. The challenge is that the investors don't know the team members. And so I've made it a point to have my team become what I call micro commercial real estate celebs. I want them to have their own their own platform. And you can look at an example of that if you go to the Ashcroft YouTube channel. and you can see Danielle. She's a team member on the investor relations team. It's 3 minutes of real estate with Danielle.
Cool.
So I encourage our investor relations team to have that type of a platform, so that when investors, prospective investors, reach out to us, they can say, "Oh, well, yeah, I've seen you on your YouTube videos. I really enjoyed the video you did on internal rate of return, and yeah, I just have some questions." That's a completely different conversation from, "Okay, nice to meet you." In this case, Danielle, can you tell me a little bit more about Ashcroft? I mean, just totally different rapport that is established or not. And so I enjoy the relationships, and I enjoy scaling to empower my team to have better relationships with our investors. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, it's about, do we enjoy what we're doing? Because there's not a lot of days in our lives that we have remaining, even if we're 20 years old. I mean, relatively speaking, there's only a certain amount of time that we have to enjoy life. And you'll see in the background, I've got what I call a death clock. So we're right around there.
See it.
Yeah, I've got.
Tell the listener and the viewer what that is.
I've got 18,293 days remaining, 11 hours, 43 minutes, and 44 seconds ticking away in my life until I'm 90 years old.
Nice.
And so I call it a death clock. My wife calls it my 90th birthday clock. So it's I perhaps I should reframe it to my 90th birthday clock, but death clock has such a better ring to it. It gets that attention. Yeah, that was custom made. I did that. I mean, I don't know, like 5 years ago or something. I've had it a while.
I remember.
And so it's just a reminder that, hey, our time on Earth is very short, relatively speaking. And so I want to enjoy the experiences I have, and the thing that I enjoy most is these relationships. The relationship I have with you, over a decade, the relationship I have with my investors, who I know very well, the ones I know very well, the relationship I have with my family, my friends. So, and going back to the Die with Zero, now I don't subscribe to the literal version of Die with Zero necessarily, but the concept of investing in memories and having those memories pay dividends, I am a huge proponent of.
I love that, Joe. I mean, having that reminder ticking away, it's like that quote from the Shawshank Redemption where Morgan Freeman says, "Get busy living or get busy dying." We're not here that long. We don't know how long we are here. And, I've done now over, about 35,000 coaching sessions, Joe. That's why you'll hear my voice is a little more raspy like Tony's. But I coach people all over the world. I coach millionaires and billionaires and Fortune 500 executives, Olympic athletes, and everything. And if there's one thing that, all of them think, it's that they're invincible, right? And we're not. I mean, we're not sure how long we're here, but I think that Die with Zero concept, and just you being aware that, life is not finite, makes you travel a little more, give a little bit more, because I know you got the best ever causes, be with Colleen and your beautiful little girl, and all of those things. And, I remember flying out to your wedding, and I had met Colleen at one of the best ever conferences, but then you were gracious enough to have me come out to your wedding in Cincinnati. And
thanks for making that trip, by the way. It's not an easy trip to make.
No, it's not. And I got to sit with Frank, your business partner, and another guy that I coached, the man, the myth, the legend, Ash Patel, who's an amazing human being. And
yes, I'm hanging out with him tonight or tomorrow night.
Tell him I said hello, and I wished him happy birthday last week. So it's not like we haven't been communicating, but you seem to attract amazing people like the Ashes, the Colleens, the Trevors, the Franks. What is it about your personality that would you say is your superpower in just attracting these team members and these investors? What is it about you? What's your superpower?
I mean, I have a couple thoughts that are always top of mind for me. One is, if I had no money, would I still be friends with this individual based on who I am to them and how I treat them? Because now I have a lot of, I'm well off, and I want to be careful that, especially with new friendships, that they're not based off of superficial stuff. So that's one. And so I'm mindful of how I approach relationships. And then the second thing, piggybacking off of that, is I'm a good listener, and I am someone who is focused on the conversation that is happening. Um, I tend to uh, keep my phone at the house if I go out with people, or I'll keep it in the car. I don't like the distraction. I want to be present in the moment with people that I'm with, and you know that used to be a thing that we all did, and now with more bells and buzzes and dings and flashing things, people are distracted, and it's disrespectful to be that distracted when you're in a conversation with someone, especially in person. That's very disrespectful, and it completely changes the level of conversation that you have with people. So I like real conversations. I like being focused on who I'm speaking to, and a good book on that is this one, Reclaiming Conversation by
Cool.
Sherry Turkle. I think she's a TED Talk person too.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm not even all the way through. It looks like I'm on page 143, but yeah, you get the concept. We're all so distracted, but on with electronics, but we've got to reclaim the conversation. There's so many benefits for doing so, and there's so many downsides for not.
Yeah, very good. No, I remember even the times we've been together, you have tremendous what we call sensory acuity, right? You're fully present, you make eye contact, you
Mhm.
smile, you gesture. And, some people get to that point where they amass so much wealth that they don't give a crap about other people. I could never see you deviating from that. That's just not in your character. So congrats for that. Three more questions and then we'll turn you loose, Joe. What's next for you in Ashcroft? If I were to say, gosh, 2.5 billion, are we going to three? Are we going to four? Is there ever a point where you and Frank are going to say, you know what, we've got enough? Or is this just who you are and what you do? And we'll let the universe support that outcome.
Well, we'll probably be at three by the end of the year. So
Wow.
we're for sure doing that.
Woohoo.
Or yeah, based on a couple projects that we're scheduled to close on.
Awesome.
Um, so yeah, I mean the focus is continuing to stay in my lane and do what I enjoy the most and scale the three departments that I oversee, which are investor relations, investor services, and marketing. I mean, those are my three areas of focus. So that's where we're headed. I mean, um, we'll just keep performing. We've sold in total 26 deals, and it's been an average 25.6% cash on cash return to our investors for
Wow.
across those 26 deals. So we're just going to keep focusing on the execution, and I'll keep focusing on what I do too.
Fantastic. Congratulations and onward and upward. Because I've always said, as a high performance Tony Robbins trained guy, that the more impact you make, the more income will flow to you. It's not that hard
Mm-hmm.
of an equation. The more you and Frank go out there and make impact, the more income will flow to you and your team and the investors and everyone else. Joe, I know that you like to give back. If there's something you could educate the listener on, and I know you've got the best ever causes, tell us a little bit about that. And again, a huge shout out from Lisa and I, as you and Colleen were instrumental in helping get her children's book off the ground, which is now, coming in close to selling over 100,000 copies
Wow.
worldwide.
Wow.
She just hit $3 million in revenue. And I'm
Wow.
telling you, it is one of the hottest things going on the planet right now. So you were instrumental in helping us get that off the ground. Thank you very much. And how do you and Colleen like to give back?
Uh, through Best Ever Causes financially. So you can look at bestevercauses.com. It's, for the last 48 or so months, we've donated $1,000 at least to a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is recommended by my community. So if anyone listening has a recommendation, feel free to suggest a group, and then my team will take a look and slot them in. So there's that. But then that's financially, that's quite frankly, it's pretty easy for
Okay.
me. Time is the main way that I see the most personal impact, both for myself and for the individual. And so that's where I do hospice. I volunteer for hospice. I meet with a patient. COVID, not so much during that time, but I've gotten back into it. And so, yeah, that's incredible. Having conversation with someone who is seeking conversation is like needs conversation, needs the companionship. That is pretty impactful across the board. I mean, I'd say half the time I leave contemplating the conversation, tears. I don't cry, but my eyes might get a little watery.
You're moved.
And I'm moved. And yeah, I'm not a crier,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just the how much they need that companionship, and how grateful I am that I do it. Although I should do it more than what I do, but for the times that I do it, I'm grateful that we both have that experience.
That's absolutely beautiful. It gives me God bumps or goosebumps just to hear you say that. And that's something Lisa and I look forward to doing as well. And I've had this conversation with other people in this series. You know these people. I coach Holly Williams, I coach Tyler Chesser, I coach Dr. Vikram Raya, all of these other rock stars that are coming in. And those are all good friends of yours and, partners of yours that, we've all done something together. And giving back is an amazing thing that all of us, as we continue to, find our freedom financially and time freedom and geographical freedom and freedom to hang around with fabulous people like the ones I just named, or freedom to impact, those 5 freedoms I believe are what it's all about. So you're well, on your way to that financial freedom, that time freedom, that, geographical freedom that allows you to travel, the freedom to hang out with kick butt people, and then the freedom to impact all over the place if you choose to. So final question, and then we'll get ready to wrap up, Joe. I know that you are a little bit of a fan of the game of chess, and I know that you like the game of chess. What is it about chess that fills up your cup? How often are you playing chess, and at what level are you at today, my brother? I'm curious.
Well, I'm not good for anyone who does play chess, but I'm better than bad. So there's that. I play on chess.com. But through my phone. And the level I'm at, for people who know chess and within chess.com, I'm a solid 1020 rating on 3-minute and 5-minute games. I've peaked to about almost 1100, and if I'm on a if I'm on tilt, then I'll go down to like 980. And so what I like about it, yeah. I mean, so I'm better than bad, but I'm not good yet. What I like about it, I love games. Like I'll make up games when people are over. I'll create a game. Like last time I had friends over last week. There's a t-ball and I had a soccer net, and so I made up a game, wiffle ball soccer, or wiffle ball golf, excuse me, where you hit the ball off the tee and you try and get it into the soccer net in the fewest amount of hits. And so we just play that, and you move the soccer net around the yard, and you see how you do against your friend. I just love games. So chess is one of them, but it's mentally stimulating. I take it as an ego hit every time I lose, which is not good for my mental state. So I need to work on that. But I really love chess.
It's awesome. Love the chess. And again, keeping your mental acuity sharp. And yeah, I can just really tell that you have always been childlike in your creativity. Whether you're telling me stories about having people over or shooting hoops or going to the lake house. And again, I admire you because, you work hard, but you play hard as well. And, for all the people that I coach at the highest of the high levels, I mean, I'm a high performance coach and I've got some incredible clients all over the world. It's really what I call hustle and flow, right? You hustle when you're working and you flow when you're with your family and your friends in the lake house, and you kind of cross pollinate. And I can see you are continuing to do that. So Joe, this has been what I call a delicious interview. Exactly what I wanted our listeners to hear and see and feel from you. And Again, we're good friends. We're good business partners. We've invested together, again, shared the stage together. I hope to do that again for many, many years to come. And for anyone else that's interested in, finding out more about you or the podcast or Ashcroft, where can people find you? And we'll put it in the show notes as well.
You go to ashcroftcapital.com. And actually, if you want to hear from over 100 Ashcroft investors, Trevor included, you can go look up at the top. I think it's Investor Perspectives. And you can listen to testimonials that over 100 investors have given, either video or written, about their experience with us.
That is phenomenal. That is testimonials, as you've always said, are the number one way to get more people to come into your tribe and community. So folks, I am absolutely blessed and grateful to call this man a friend. And man, we are going to, count down that life clock together, Joe, and I'll probably expire before you. But, I just so blessed and grateful to have had you come into my life. And I hope that, you find that reciprocated in coming into your life, because I have this philosophy that for guys that play at our level, we're all better together. And that's what I hope that the listener is hearing. And so with that said, I'm going to wish you a wonderful day, Joe. Have a great one. And for all of you out there, thank you for joining me. Go back and listen to this episode again, because again, repetition is the mother of skill. And it doesn't matter if you're 27, 37, or 107 years old, live life to the fullest and play full out. And thank you very much, Joe. Have an amazing day.
Thank you.
Take care.